Hi children, how are you? This is me, your English teacher, and welcome back to our online classes conducting by Surya Vidyaniketan. This is the class for 5th class and second term English. And in the previous class, we discussed about the lesson Oliver finds a home. And shall we continue the next part? We discussed about Oliver in the last class, and he was an orphan and he ran away from the orphanage and he came to the den of the thieves and they took him for a robbery and they were caught by the servants and the thieves left him behind there and Oliver caught by the servants and he was wounded by the servants and Mrs. Maylie and Miss Rose was taking care of the thief. That means he fetched a doctor for him and he was making treat. So in the section 2, listen carefully. In the next room, Miss Rose continued, think how young he is. Perhaps he has never known a mother's care. Perhaps he has never had a home. Poor boy. Oh, auntie, don't let them send this boy to prison. And we saw that Miss Rose was so affectionate with the Oliver when they saw the thief was an young boy and she laid his bed and she was combing his hair that was on his forehead and in the deep sleep also he was smiling when he felt the affection, no? And here she is saying to her aunt, that means Mrs. Maylie, to Mrs. Maylie she is saying, don't let send this boy to prison because he was a wicked thief here and she is asking her aunt, don't send this boy to prison. And then Mrs. Maylie is saying to the Rose that, do you think I would harm one hair of his head? And here, I would harm one hair of his head means she is asking that she never would cause the smallest hurt or injury to him. That means she don't want to punish him. And she is saying that she hasn't lived for a long time that and she has to help how much she can. And she is asking Dr. Losburn, how can we help this boy? That means they don't want to send this boy to prison and she asked Dr. Losburn how did we can save this boy to send to the prison. And he said that let me think, said the kind-hearted doctor. Okay, here they saying that the doctor was a kind-hearted person and for some moments he looked thoughtful. Then she asked, can we trust the servants to say nothing about the boy? Here Dr. Losban asking to Mrs. Maylie that here they have the servants. We already told that Mr. Giles and Brittles, no? So can we trust them? That means if they tell anything to the police when they came to in for them for asking questions to them, they any can do they anyone tell the truth? Then Mrs. Maylie is saying to them, no, they will do as I tell them. She said that no, they won't tell anything. What she will tell to them, they will do that only. Okay, then the doctor said good, but he said the one thing that means the doctor Losburn said that let us hear what the boy has to say when he wakes up. He was sleeping now, no? He was injured and he was in the treatment and when he woke up, we should ask what happened at first. And if the boy is finding innocent, we will help him. Otherwise, if he feels he was guilty on the incident, we should send hand over him to the police. And Dr. Losban asked to Mrs. Maylie and Miss Rose, do you agree that? The two ladies readily agreed, for they were sure that Oliver was innocent. The two ladies, that means Mrs. Rose and Miss Rose and Mrs. Maylie, readily agreed. That means they agreed fastly because they know Oliver was not a thief. They were very sure that. And Oliver slept for many hours. In the In the evening, when he woke up, he was very weak, but he was anxious to tell his story. The ladies wept as they heard of his miserable life. The doctor tried hard to hide his tears. They did their best to comfort the boy. Oliver slept that night with a smile on his lips. Here, Oliver slept for many hours, and in the evening, when he woke up, he was very eager to say this story to them. And when they heard his miserable story, miserable means here very sad, unhappy, uncomfortable story, the ladies were very sad and they were tearing. That means they are crying the tears, they are wiping their tears. And the doctor also trying to hide his tears. That means he also has to cry, but he has hiding his tears. And that night Oliver slept with a smile on his lips because he had found a home. He has a safety place. He had a safety place now. He had a home now. So he slept peacefully on that night. When the police came to ask questions, Mr. Giles and Brittles were ready with their story. Here, ready with their story means already Dr. Losban asked, no, can we trust the servants? Then he told them to Mr. Giles and Mr. Brittles a story. That means they has to say, if the police came to ask them, Dr. Losban said to him how he has to say. That means here the story. What the story they said? They said that Oliver had accidentally wounded himself while playing with a gun. Here Oliver was wounded, and they said that when he was playing with a gun, he was wounded himself. And he had nothing to do with the robbery. He has no part of the robbery. And the housebreakers, that means the thieves, were two evil looking men. And the servants, with the help of Dr. Losban, told their story well. Dr. Losban also prompted them how to tell the story, and the police believed them, and Oliver was left in peace. That means Oliver did not went to the prison, and he was stayed there only. Oliver found love and kindness. Indeed, Mrs. Maylie and Rose loved the boy. So did Dr. Losban. Here, Oliver was very peaceful there because Mrs. Maylie and Miss Rose loved him very much, and as like the Dr. Losban. And at the beginning of the spring, the Maylies took Oliver to their house in the country. In the spring, Oliver was taken to the country by Mrs. Maylie and Miss Rose. And there the trees were in blossom, and the gardens and fields were full of flowers, and the songs of the birds are there, and Oliver had never known such peace and such happiness. He was seeing that climate first time, that like of peaceful first time in his life, and he was such a happiness. Every morning, Oliver went to an old gentleman who taught him to read and write. He went for walks with Rose and Mrs. Smaley. In the evening, they sat together and talked, or Rose read aloud to them. Often, Rose played the piano and sang. And he was an orphan. Oliver was an orphan, and here he can't study before days, no. So now in the every morning, Oliver went to an old gentleman who taught him to read and write, and they went for a walks, and in the evenings they sat together and talked, and Rose read loud for them, and often Rose played the piano and sang for them. Here Mrs. Maylie and here Oliver also very liked to hear the piano, and he slept but peacefully in a clean bed in his own room. 3 months passed by. They were the months of perfect happiness for Oliver Twist. In the country with Mrs. Maylie and Miss Rose, Oliver spent 3 months. That was the 3 months of perfect happiness for Oliver's taste. He was very happy with them, and that was the perfect happiness for Oliver's taste. Children, I think you could understand this, and we should meet in the next class. Thank you for watching.